Good morning, everyone. I am Tabitha with Tabs on Tap. No exciting video to play at the beginning of the show this morning, although I should have a video outside of course, this crazy Arctic wind. I hope you guys are all having a really great morning. This is one of those days where you have to make sure you are prepared. It is really cold out there. I had to run outside for a few seconds, and I am telling you, this wind will go right through you. I'm standing near a window right now, and I am absolutely freezing, despite the fact that I do have the heat on. I was trying to not turn the heat on yet, but with this kind of cold, what can you do? And I feel so bad for all the little animals outside on days like today. I know my little chickens, they're out in their coop and tucked away warm and cozy right now, but eventually I'll have to let them out. And I feel really bad. I'm in the middle of winterizing their run. So if you have chickens, some people don't winterize their run, some people do. I have, of course, it's only my second winter having chickens, but I've been in the process of putting up some heavy duty plastic around the run and making sure they have a nice cozy area. Last year they did good. I didn't have any frostbite or anything crazy happen. And hopefully this year will be the same. I went out and bought a bunch of really heavy moving blankets, and I'm going to put that over the coop itself to kind of seal in, to weatherize it just a little bit. And of course, I have tarps over the run. With mine, everybody has a different setup. For my chickens, I have a large run. I think it's 13 by 20 feet. And then I only have six chickens, so I don't have very many. The coop was within that run. And I have a heated pad that's in there, so if they do get cold, but I don't think chickens know or care. I'm not even sure if they understand that it's cold and it's dangerous. So I feel like it's my job to protect them. Good morning, Lori. It does sound like winter outside. It is crazy out there. I hate winter. I hate cold weather. I am not looking forward to any of this. I think we're going to have some really cold days. If you're here in the St. Louis area, then it's going to warm up a tiny bit next week. And then guess what? We're in for the long haul. Then it's going to get down to where we're having the highs in the 20s. We're probably going to see some snow. I don't mind seeing snow for a day, especially around the holidays, but I do not like snow. I don't want any snow. I don't want anything weather related. And somebody was telling me yesterday, I can't remember who, but someone was telling me yesterday how they also hate winter. And this person explained that if you're already a depressed person, then in those winter months, you're even more depressed. And that a lot of people seek counseling and different things in the winter months. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I've never been depressed, but I'm actually probably the opposite. If there's such thing as a mental disorder, I'm probably overly optimistic and overly happy. There's probably times I probably should be depressed and I'm not. But during those winter and fall months, I can't stand it. I can't stand the cold weather. I can't stand losing all the pretty green. I'm not looking forward to it at all. Good morning, Linda. Linda, I'm sure you're feeling this crazy cold weather also. So there's a lot of things to talk about today. A lot of things to talk about. Every morning I wake up because I do all of my research in the morning. I don't do anything at night because everything changes overnight. When I wake up in the morning, everything is different. There's a lot of new news items. Some things, of course, are still news items, and I'll talk about those, but there's also a lot of new things that pop up early in the morning. And of course, today, good morning, Allison and Cindy and Dottie. Today is a historic day. It's an absolutely historic day. And we're definitely going to have to talk about it. You're probably tired of hearing about Russia and Ukraine, as am I, but it is the most important news topic today and probably will be for some time to come. So it was absolutely historic this morning that Russia lost. I'm going to start out my day without being able to speak. That Russia launched an ICBM missile into Ukraine, striking, from what I understand, some type of facility there. I don't know what was housed in the facility. Some people say that's where our Patriot missile defense systems were housed. I'm not sure. Of course, this was a non-nuclear ICBM. This has never happened before. This is the first time this has ever happened in the history of our entire world. It's never happened before. We've never had another country launch an intercontinental ballistic missile into another country during a time of war, of battle. It's never happened before. And thankfully, this one did not include a nuclear warhead. But if you know what an ICBM is, you know that that is to facilitate a nuclear war. That is the type of missile you attach a nuclear warhead to. And I think this is Russia saying, "Hey, this is my warning shot. Back off now." And if you don't back off, guess what? The next one might actually contain the nuclear warhead. So I don't know what's going to happen from here. It's a really big deal. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how the United States is going to react. I don't know how the rest of the world is going to react. So we're going to talk about that quite a bit. I've got some other things, a couple other things to talk about first, but we are definitely going to get into that discussion because I think that we hear about Germany preparing for war, Finland, Sweden, all of these countries are getting ready. And I think that we shouldn't wait for our government to tell us and hand out pamphlets about getting ready. I think we need to be ready. What does war look like here in the United States? Probably not the same, as what war looks like in Ukraine. But at the same time, there are things that we do and can still prepare for. You can only prepare for so much. We had Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard on yesterday, and just as he said, when it comes to nuclear war, I mean, what can you do? You're going to go, we've all seen the movies. What was that movie? I know there was one Armageddon. There was another one. I can't remember what it's called, but it's always stuck in my mind. I was a kid when that movie came out and it showed the nuclear, missiles flying through the air. And you saw that there was really nothing you can do. You can hide in your basement, you can tape your windows up, you can go down into a bomb shelter. But if for some reason we ended up in a nuclear war, you do not want to survive it. You want to make sure you're the first to go. You don't want to go through that. And so I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not proposing that's going to happen. I'm just saying you don't want to be any part of that. And Cindy says, "Well, Cammy is in Hawaii. There was no one running the White House." Not yeah, exactly. Not that she ever did. That's for sure. And I don't know if you guys saw the video of Biden. I'm not going to play it for you, but yesterday he was walking. I don't even know where he was. He was getting on a plane, and one of these reporters was like screaming at him, like screaming at him. And he didn't even turn, he didn't look, he just kept walking straight ahead. So you know that this man has had a talking to. And apparently yesterday was his birthday, and she was saying, "Oh, hey, Biden, it's your birthday, blah, blah, blah." Gutfeld, from what I heard, I don't watch Gutfeld, but I heard that he played a clip of it. And you know that Biden just had a talking to. And I'll bet you anything the talking to that came down to Biden was, "Man, you got to step down. You need to let old Cammy take her place in history, and it's time for you to move aside." I will bet you anything that was the talk they had. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's Joe Biden sitting in the seat or Kamala Harris sitting in the seat. We all know who's really running the show, and it's not either one of them. Allison, he looked dazed and confused. Yes, doesn't he? Very often. The only time I've never seen him, that I haven't seen him dazed and confused, was the one time that he gave a speech that Harris didn't win, that Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. That is the only time I've seen Biden actually look like he knew what was going on. And I think we all know why. Very proud moment for him and very telling. I think that Jill Biden wore red to vote. So something to think about. So, I'm going to touch on something that's really sad, and before we move on to some other things, because it happened yesterday, and there was a young lady, I believe she was 31 years old, Michelle Hampton. A lot of you guys saw the Facebook post going around because her sister, Tamara Lee, is a friend of a friend, someone on Facebook. I don't know Tamara myself, but someone on my Facebook page does know her and goes to church with her. So I knew as soon as I saw the post that this is not one of those fake scam posts. This is real. And good morning, Joe. And it was crazy to me. The whole situation was crazy. The story is that Michelle Hampton lives with her twin sister Samantha. They live right by the Galleria. And I'm not going to tell you exactly where their house is, but it's right across, just a little north of the Galleria, up in this little subdivision. And for some of you who may or may not know, when I moved from Chicago when I was 16 years old, my family moved to Ladue. We live right there on Clayton Road, kind of at the corner of Clayton and Lay Road, if you know where that is. And so I consider that my old stomping grounds when I was young, because I hung out in that area all the time. And, I've seen that area change a lot over the years. It has changed a lot. And that really does or doesn't maybe have anything to do with the situation. But the story is that at 7:15 a.m., Michelle's twin sister, who they share a house or an apartment with, was driving down the street. She was heading back towards her home, and she saw her sister, Michelle, being forced into a vehicle at gunpoint. And then one of the assailants got into Michelle's vehicle and was following the yellow F 150 that Michelle was being forced to ride in. And the sister started following behind, obviously in fear, calling police, letting police know what was going on. But she called Clayton police, and that is Brentwood. And so I think that might have been part of the initial maybe confusion. Is that that's that little tiny corner, if anybody knows where that is, that little triangle, and that's technically Brentwood. And I thought it would have been Richmond Heights, but I'm hearing that it's Brentwood. I know Brentwood is handling this situation. So what happened is that her sister followed her. She followed her all the way to Enright in and Euclid, if you know where that is, in the city. And at that point, the person driving, from what I understand, the person that was driving Michelle's car fired several rounds at the sister, who also had her child in the car, struck the car, thankfully didn't cause any injuries. And at that point, she had to back off and no longer followed them. There was a lot of confusion, allegedly, with the police call, where the police dispatcher thought that it was a situation of a road rage incident. And allegedly, it wasn't reported correctly to police because there was some confusion with the dispatcher. That's what I'm told. That's what I'm told. And I don't know the side of the police. And so then from there, the we don't really know what happened. But what we're told is that the assailants took Michelle to a couple of different ATM machines in the city and withdrew money. And I believe those were successful withdrawals of money. And then the next thing we know, unfortunately, at 11 a.m., right there in the Ville neighborhood, where the majority of homicides in the St. Louis area are committed, there were gunshots that were reported right next to a school. Back in an alleyway, police responded and they found Michelle Hampton. She had been shot 5 times in the head, which is, I mean, it's horrific. We pray for her family. It is absolutely horrific what happened to this girl. And her brother spoke out and on social media. I've not talked to any of these people personally, just their direct statements on social media. And he stated that he feels that it wasn't random. And the police have stated they don't feel that it's random, but we don't know at this point. They feel that for them, these assailants, to come directly to her, and they believe that they went up to her door to her house and brought her out of the house. And we don't know, was it a robbery? Was it something more than that? We don't know at this point. I don't think that it was random or whether it was targeted. I don't know that they know. I don't think we're far enough along in the investigation. And I don't think it was a box truck, Joe. From what I understand, it was just a Ford F 150. Now, I could be wrong. It could have been a box truck. If it was, I didn't hear that. I assumed it was a yellow pickup truck. And again, this happened at 7:15 a.m. Well, what's crazy about that is that I worked yesterday downtown. Now, I was not downtown during any of this. But I'm sorry, I wasn't working downtown. I was actually working at the corner of McCausland and Clayton Road, if you know where that was. I work in anti-piracy. I was at a theater in that area, and I got there too early as it was, and then the screening was delayed. So I was sitting in my car for quite some time. And I'll tell you what, I saw some really weird stuff going on, which I did report, by the way. And I don't know if it's related, not related, but but there was some really weird activity that took place right in front of me, which was really strange. And we'll see how that pans out, or if it has anything to do with it, or it was just completely a different random act of crime. And that area right there, where Michelle and her sister lived, unfortunately, that's been increasingly a higher crime area. If you're familiar with Richmond Heights, that Schnucks there have been carjackings at that Schnucks. There have been robberies at the Commerce Bank there on Clayton Road, people using the ATM machine and robbed. We know there's a lot of people who what they do is and I've talked about this on shows for many years. This part's not new. There's a lot of criminals who do end up at the Galleria. It's believed that they take Metrolink, end up at the Galleria, and then they carjack people, rob people, and then of course they leave the area. But this is a really, really sad situation, a really sad case. It's the Brentwood Police Department that's handling this case, and I hope we get some updates today. I hope they find some justice for Michelle. I mean, I can't even imagine, but it's just another reminder. Even if this was a targeted crime, if these people did know her, and I don't know if they did or did not, the police feel like it was targeted. However, we know these situations happen. Just 2 years ago, there was a man in the Demon area right there off of Clayton Road and really close to where I was yesterday. And he was just out jogging and someone attempted to rob him and shot him. And there's a lot that goes on. And that's just another reminder for us all to be aware of our surroundings. If somebody comes to your door, do not answer your door if you don't know them. This is why we need to be prepared. This is why you need to be armed. It is. I hate to tell people to take a gun, a weapon into your vehicle when you're driving, but you have to start thinking about protecting yourself first. Worry about everything else later. Now, if you're a hot-headed person and the possibility of having a road rage incident could happen to you, don't take a weapon with you. But for most of us, safety is number one. You have to protect yourself. And I'm not saying that if Michelle had a gun that this wouldn't have happened, because there's no way we can say that, but I think that a lot of these situations can be prevented if you are armed and if you know how to use your weapon. It is so unfortunate. Yes, Allison, be prepared to protect yourself. And Annette, the metro has really hurt Clayton Richmond Heights area. It really has. Me being living in that area, as a teen, and then also as a young adult, it has changed a lot. I remember when the Galleria over there wasn't even an enclosed mall. I think it was like a Lord and Taylor and a Stixbear and Fuller. There were a couple of different big department stores there, and then eventually they created the, connection and put the mall in, and everything was still good. That used to be a fantastic mall. I used to go there all the time. And we used to walk there, from our house. And then all of a sudden they put the Metrolink in, and guess what happens when the Metrolink comes in? And it's really unfortunate because a lot of employees at that mall and other places around the county, though, there's a lot of employees from the city who rely on public transportation. But as we know in the St. Louis area, public transportation really is just not safe. It's just not. The Metrolink, they have fights and shootings, buses, St. Louis buses, the transit system, again, fights, shootings. It's really sad state that we're living in right now. And I even told the story to somebody the other day that we have these people coming to our country, let's say, and I'm not talking necessarily about illegals. I'd read a story a couple of years ago, which I relayed on whatever show I was on back then, about some refugees from Syria who were here legally. They were brought here legally and they were given a home in St. Louis City. And this is so sad, but this family, they had small children, and they said St. Louis is worse than being in Syria. And this was in the middle of the war with ISIS and everything that was going on. They came here, they wanted to go back to Syria because they said, we can't even let our children play outside. We hear gunshots every single night, and we're terrified. St. Louis is not a good place to live. I'm sorry if you think it is. It's not. It's not. And unfortunately, that crime and that criminal activity is spreading out into the counties. And you can't fight it, because no one will help. And Annette, the Galleria now closes at 6. I when well, if that happened in the past couple days, maybe. But I worked at the Galleria last week, and they were definitely open past 6 p.m. because I was there until 10 p.m. And we do anti-piracy there sometimes at the movie theater at the Galleria. They were definitely open. And good morning, Phyllis. And Alice in the Gun Shack in St. Clair, Missouri, every Tuesday, 4 to 6 p.m. is ladies' night. Listen to that. That's a fantastic idea. $10 for the use of indoor range. Get some range time in. Allison, thank you for that information. The Gun Shack, St. Clair, Missouri, every Tuesday, 4 to 6 p.m., ladies' night, $10 to use their indoor range. Good morning, Tammy, Jerry Hoover. You know, I don't even know what to think about this. Just yesterday morning, before I even knew about any of this, it was around 4 o'clock in the morning yesterday when I first woke up. I had a lady who's a famous motorcycle rider rode through St. Louis and posted a video online. She was going past the arch. She's one of those, influencers, people that drives around the country. And I had made a comment on there like, well, I wouldn't drive past there at night, because there's a lot of crime that happens at the Arch, in St. Louis City, of course, on the Arch Fairgrounds. And, people were like blasting me over my comment. Oh, that's not true. St. Louis is safe. I've lived there for years. Nothing's ever happened. I lived there. I lived downtown in a loft for 4 years. I lived in South City for a number of years. I know what the city is like. I actually lived there. There was a time I was driving down Jefferson Street and had to stop my vehicle so two people could shoot across the street at each other. It is crazy. It is the crime rate in St. Louis City is unacceptable and it's crazy. And this has nothing to do, or maybe it does have to do with Michelle Hampton. I don't know. But what I do know is a young life has been taken completely, maybe at random, maybe not. I don't know. But it's completely senseless. Absolutely senseless. And as long as people keep voting in, or I should say, not voting at all in the city of St. Louis, we're going to continue to see crime rise. And you may not live in the city of St. Louis. You may not care about the crime in the city of St. Louis because it's very easy to say, well, I'm just not going to go into the city. I don't need to worry about the crime. Well, yes, you do. Because guess what? That crime is spreading into the counties. It is going into the counties. I migrated in so many different ways. There was a time, like I said, when it was really neat to live in St. Louis City because you could get out, you could walk up down Washington Avenue. My family had a two flat over in South City where my brother lived, and I, lived there too at different times. And then I got tired of crime and I moved all the way out to Wing Haven. And then guess what? There was a home invasion in my neighborhood. And I'm like, how does this happen? Crime was like following me west. And a lot of people ask, well, why did I end up moving to Illinois, especially in a rural area? It is to escape crime, to escape the crazy liberalism that has been invading, of course, the county, and to escape crime. I kept thinking, I keep moving further west, and the crime's just following me. It's just coming along with me. I lived in these really nice apartments, and I guess I can say it now because I don't live there anymore. But do you guys, if you're familiar with the area over there, when I was waiting, it's a long story, but anyway, I lived there for a year and it was called the Trace Apartments. And the people there are nice. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's another situation where, I went through this rigmarole paying, 17, 19, between 17, $1,900 a month for a little two-bedroom, apartment. And you expect it to be really nice and upscale, right? And then I find out that they're allowing people on Section 8 to move in, and these people moved in directly above me, and everything just went crazy after that. It was just chaos. And then it turns out that these people had used a stolen credit card to move in, and for some kind of little deposit they had to put down. Their Section 8 housing, whatever it is they were using, was fraudulent. I mean, it's like, what is happening in St. Charles County? If people don't get a grip on it, it's going to be just like St. Louis City. And so I thought, you know what? Instead of me going that way, I'm going to turn around and go the opposite direction. And I'm going to go over to Illinois. It's like I felt like I just moved, from the city over to Weldon Spring to these apartments and then to a house in Wing Haven. And guess what? A home invasion. You just can't escape it. You know what? Where I live right now, nothing. There's nothing going on. There's absolutely nothing going on. I don't even think I've ever heard a siren, never heard a gunshot, nothing going on. You just have to move away from these areas. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Annette says, "Oh wow, my daughter was there during the week between 5 and 6 p.m. about 6 months ago. The Apple store was closing at 6. She assumed the mall. No, the mall definitely doesn't close that early, but the Apple store might." And let's see here. Oh yeah, Annette. So you live in Darden Prairie, so you probably remember when that home invasion occurred. I lived in a house back kind of by the boardwalk, all the way back towards the back, and really nice, beautiful area. But I'll tell you, crime is everywhere. It is everywhere. You can't avoid it. The only thing you can do is be prepared for it. And that the apartments in O'Fallon are out of control. We are looking to move to the Troy area. Exactly. And that's what I was facing too. I'm like, do I move further out and keep going? But I work in the city, I work in South County, I work at all these different movie theaters. I'm like, I can't keep moving west and be too far away from everything. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go over here where it's nice, quiet, and peaceful, where I can buy a decent house with a lot of land for the same price I can, pay for a smaller house with no land in Missouri. So that's why I'm here. But I'll tell you what, that's besides the point. You have to be able to protect yourself. It doesn't matter where you live. It does not matter. You cannot allow yourself to become a victim. And I hope we learn a little bit from something, the tragedy that did happen yesterday. We're going to pay attention to that. We're going to follow along that with that case, and hopefully those two men, if it were, I believe it was just two, hopefully they are apprehended, hopefully they're arrested and never see the light of day again, or worse. But we're not going to get into violence today. Allison, didn't any illegal alien stab a man in a laundromat in O'Fallon? I don't know if that happened. I'm not aware of it. It's certainly possible. I'm kind of watching here, watching the news to see what happens after Russia, so we can talk about that a little bit because, man, it's a big deal. I wanted to get to that Michelle Hampton story just because it's so incredibly important. Especially, we don't be a victim. Please don't be a victim. Please follow that case and keep reminding yourself not to be a victim. Annette, yes, let's see. I work in Clayton and would have to commute. Waiting to see if I can work from home. Yeah, that would definitely help. Working from home is remotely is also a good option if you can do that. A lot less you have to worry about, that's for sure. So as I said earlier, Russia, this is absolutely historic. Absolutely historic. Has fired. They launched an ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile, into Ukraine. And I'm going to show you a video. I'm going to show you two videos because I want you to understand the full impact. One is so you can see. I wish I could overlay these, but I can't. There's a nice shot of the missile hitting in this region of Ukraine. And then there's another video that just shows you the sound because this is historic. This has never happened before. I want you to understand how incredibly important this is. Never at any point in the history of the world has an intercontinental ballistic missile been launched in a time of war into another country. I don't know what's going to happen for here. I don't. It landed in the Dnipro region, and I'm going to show you a video of it here in a second. And let's see here, Cindy. So many companies went back in the office. Mine went back in 3 days a week in downtown. Congratulations, Cindy, on, of course, your retirement. Jay, non-nuclear, but definitely attention. Non-nuclear, yes, as I stated earlier, but regardless of it being nuclear or not nuclear, this is a nuclear capable missile that was launched into Ukraine. A first ever, if you were here on the show yesterday, you knew it was coming. Russia said they were going to do it. We knew yesterday that this was going to happen. We didn't know when, but it did happen early this morning, I believe around 5 a.m. So I'm going to show you a quick video here. Now, this is what it looks like. Then I'm going to show you what it sounds like. Unfortunately, there's no video I can find that has sound and a view because if you were that close, you're probably not around to show the video. So let's take a look at the video here. So that's the blast, as you can see it. And it was actually that what happens with this type of missile is it's one missile, but the warhead splits apart. And that's why you see, I'm going to play it one more time. And that's why you see these different areas being struck as it looks. That, I mean, that's just powerful looking, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. And then I'm going to show you what it sounds like. Be prepared for your earmuffs because it is really loud. That is what, if you lived in the Dnipro region of Ukraine, that is what you woke up to this morning, and where do we go? Where do we go from here? What happens next? How is the world going to react? How is the United States going to react? Well, we already know yesterday ahead of the missile launch, because we all knew this was going to happen. Russia was very clear that they were going to be launching this missile. And we all knew the retaliation was coming, because when we, the United States, and of course the UK was also part of this, when we allowed Ukraine to fire long range missiles into Russia, what do you think was going to happen? You know, Putin was very clear about what was going to happen if we allowed that. And to take it a step further, like I said yesterday, it's not an easy situation of, well, we gave these long range missiles to Ukraine and they're just sitting on them. And yes, apparently they've had them for a very long time, but they don't know how to operate them. They don't know how to launch them. So now that we know that yesterday they did launch, as a matter of fact, in the very beginning yesterday's show, they had launched 6 of these long range missiles. Well, later on in the day, they launched 12 more into Russian territory. So it is a really big deal. And therefore, Russia knows that we have to have either US personnel, NATO troops, or maybe part of the British army over there facilitating the launch of these missiles, because the Ukrainians don't know how to do it on their own. We have to assist them. And for us to go over into Ukraine and assist them with launching these long range missiles into Russia, we basically did declare an act of war. That is how most of the world sees it, despite of whatever our government might be telling you. And Allison says, I believe it was illegal for Biden to allow this. Yes, it is illegal, because you need congressional approval to start a war. They want to tiptoe around it. They don't want to call this an act of aggression or an act of war, but it is. When you, the United States, send your people over, when you provide the technology to launch these long range missiles into another country, you are directly involved. It is no longer a proxy. You yourself are directly involved, and you have to have congressional approval to do this, which Biden did not do it. And we all know it's not Biden. I feel silly even saying Biden, because he doesn't know what's going on. I mean, he has no idea what's going on. He's sitting in a corner eating his pudding, and they're like, oh, guess what we're doing? He's like, he don't know. He has no idea. But this is why they're calling for him to step down. And I'm like, okay, so we have all of these Republicans in Congress saying, Biden, you have to step down. What you did was wrong. It's unconstitutional. You didn't have congressional approval. What is him stepping down going to do? I mean, it really doesn't even matter. It makes absolutely no difference. It doesn't open the door for anything other than Harris to step in. I don't get why they want him to step down outside of ruining his legacy if he's impeached or is forced to step down. It doesn't change a single thing. If Biden announces today he's stepping down, it doesn't change a single thing. Now, it could maybe buy us some time with Putin. He might say, okay, maybe if Biden steps down, that's going to buy us a little bit of time until Trump comes in. And then, of course, Trump is going to usher in a realm of peace. And Putin, I know, knows this. But, how much can he put up with? What's going to happen next? Germany is talking about mobilizing 800,000 NATO troops. That's Germany's plan, 800,000 NATO troops to go into Ukraine to fight against Russia. Where do you think that leaves us? That's a full scale war. And I think we all know that Putin launched this ICBM into Ukraine, even though it did not contain a nuclear warhead. It could have. I mean, this missile is meant to launch nuclear weapons. It is a nuclear weapon. It just didn't have the nuclear warhead. So, therefore, I think that's Putin's way of saying, hey, this time I'm going easy on you. I warned you. And that's, if you look at Putin in his history, the pattern that he typically uses is he does give many warnings. Before this invasion into Ukraine, he gave many, many warnings, 6 months of warnings or more, before he finally made that step and took that incursion into Ukraine. And I feel like this is his warning that, okay, I launched this missile, this ICBM missile into Ukraine. This goes to show that I have the capability of doing it. I can do it. And if you keep pushing me, the next one is going to have the nuclear warhead. Just as we talked about yesterday with Colonel Joe Adams on the show, Russia won't lose. They will not lose. They will not lose. Now, we might all lose and go down with them, but Putin is not going to lose because Putin knows if he doesn't win this war, his life is over. They will go over there and capture him like they did Saddam Hussein, and he will be killed. This is life and death for him. And he knows that if he doesn't win this war, he's done. He is not going to give up. It is not going to happen. So what is going to happen between now and then? I mean, where is this going to go from here? Are we going to escalate today? That's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to keep escalating it further and further. Good morning, Glesna from Michigan. And Allison says, when Putin opened East Germany, the agreement was NATO not to expand towards Russia, and NATO broke their agreement. Of course, NATO broke their agreement. Do you think NATO cares about treaties? Good morning, Stacy. Yesterday, Biden, of course, the deep state went against the Ottawa Treaty by allowing landmines into Ukraine. And it's kind of funny. This happens to me every single time because think sometimes I never think of myself as a naive person, but sometimes when it comes to war, I think I can be, because when we talked about the long range missiles, I thought, well, I don't know, does Ukraine already have them? Oh yeah, they do. When it comes to these anti-personnel landmines, do they already have them? Yes, they do. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you right here that they not only do they have the landmines, but they are out in the fields planting the landmines. So yes, take a look at this.
Вот такая вот фигня. Маленькая, наступаешь, срабатывает лучше лепестка. Аккуратнее, братья. Вот листья, и тут накиданы они вон.
So that gives you the idea. They're already out there in Ukraine planting the landmines to, of course, as Russia continues to move and take over new regions of Ukraine, which is, I want you to think about this. Think about this, because I don't think most people get it. And I hope you get it. Most people do not understand this. People say, oh, Russia's losing the war. No, they're not. Russia is winning the war over there. Russia is winning. They continue to advance. Yes, they've lost a lot of troops. So has Ukraine. But either way, they continue to advance. And think about this. Russia is not just fighting against Ukraine. They're fighting against all of NATO, all of the West. Because if this war from the very beginning, if it was just Russia against Ukraine, it would have ended on day one. It would have never went past one day. However, when we have the United States and all of Europe continuously funding, what this week we just gave them another $275 million we've authorized to give Ukraine, $183 billion since 2022. That's just from us, the United States. Think about all of the money that has come over from all of these other countries. Like I said yesterday, these countries are bankrupting themselves. We, the United States, we finally reached this point where we're over $36 trillion in debt. And in 2024, we didn't print any new money. And we're heading in a very quick downward spiral. But yet we have $183 billion to give to Ukraine. So think about this. Putin is fighting. He's not just fighting Ukraine. He is fighting the entire NATO establishment. He's fighting the entire West. And no matter what we throw at him, he continues to progress into Ukraine. Just this morning, I saw they took over 3 new regions. They continue to progress, and we can't stop them. People want to say, especially if you listen to a lot of the old Cold War propaganda, they want you to think that we're more powerful than Russia. And we might be militarily, but what we have to remember is that Putin's willing to push the button. He has nothing to lose. He's gonna be killed. So it comes to life or death for him. And he has already made statements, as well as some of his advisors, that if you, the United States, keep pressing us, if you keep poking us, you're going to take all of humanity down with you. And trust me, he will press that button. Before he loses, he will press that button. So we're going to have to really pay attention today to see what's going on, what we're going to do, how the United States is going to respond, because there's a lot going on. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's taking place here and in different countries. So let me see here. Oh, sorry, it'll just take me a second to find it. So some different headlines around the country. Sweden, some of this we talked about yesterday, some of it we didn't. Sweden, they're warning their citizens to prepare for, they have those crisis of war pamphlets that we talked about yesterday that they're passing around. 5 million households receive these little pamphlets that talk about nuclear war, cyber war, and bioattacks, explaining to citizens how to prepare for war. We have Germany again, their army is preparing businesses for the possibility of war. They've been sending out their army going around business to business, talking about business owners about how to prepare in a state of war. Germany talking about sending 800,000, again, NATO troops into Ukraine to protect, of course, our assets, because Ukraine is really just an extension of the United States these days. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, he's telling his military to prepare for war. And as we know about North Korea, they're already in Russia fighting, or I should say in Ukraine now, fighting on the front lines. So they're very involved. Greece announced an overhaul of its armed forces. Their government spokesman, Pavlos Marinakis, if I'm probably not saying that right, announced that the creation of an air defense system complete with anti-aircraft and anti-drone dome was amongst their most significant changes as they prepare for war. These are headlines around the country. Croatia is in a panic. They fear that war is coming. It says they are preparing their people for disaster. As part of the European Rescue Project, the Ministry of the Interior is preparing a tender for gas masks worth as much as 31.45 million euros. They're going to be handing out gas masks to their citizens ahead of a war. Ukraine, of course, they're saying, let the battle begin. We're ready. We know they're not, but of course, we know what Putin thinks. And again, Germany, they have, let's see here, planning for World War III with 1,000-page secret documentation called Operation Deutschland, which is, of course, along with these 800,000 NATO troops, 200,000 plus vehicles. They're preparing for war. I could go on. I could go on and on because there are so many headlines that I came across in Europe talking about preparing their citizens for war. And I think we've seen in the past what happens when all of the government paid funded media, and it's not just here in the United States, that's all across Europe, government paid media. What happens when they all have they come together in solidarity? In this case, it's war. It's been a lot of other things in the past. Something is happening. Something is happening. So man, we've got to pay attention to what's happening. We've got to listen to what they're saying in these other countries. Our media here isn't going to talk to us. They're not going to tell you to prepare for war. You'll have a bomb drop on your house before they tell you to prepare for any type of war. And Paul, I think this administration is poking the bear. You better believe it. So he'll lash out and involve some American troops. That way, the U.S. will have no choice but to retaliate, thus starting our official involvement in this BS war. Trump will be walking into this term handcuffed right off the bat. You know, Paul, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know if you were listening yesterday, but we talked about that a little bit. And yes, Putin is a smart man. And no, I'm not worshiping Putin. Putin is not the god, trust me. But he is the lesser of the two evils in this situation, of course. And I absolutely do believe that we are poking. And Putin is a smart man. He knows that they're trying to bait him into war. And that's why he fired a warning shot. Think about that this morning. That ICBM going into Ukraine, that's our warning shot. I don't think there will be another one. That's our warning shot. He is saying, okay, keep poking me and see what I will do next. This time, there's not a nuclear warhead attached. Next time, there just might be. Keep poking me. Now, can Putin remain, can he keep his resolve? Can he stay patient? Can he manage to hang in there until Trump takes office? We can only push him so far. You know, if they continue launching these long range missiles into Russian areas killing Russian troops, what do you think's going to happen? Eventually, he's going to say, "Okay, you want war, you've got war," and then all hell's going to break loose. It's going to be so bad. Well, I hope that doesn't happen, but I don't see how there's any option at this point. Lane says these people are nuts. World War One all over again. Who will be the next Archduke Ferdinand? Man, Lane, I couldn't agree with you more. I really do. I'm trying not to be one of those people where it's like the sky is falling, you need to be scared. We're very sheltered here in the United States. I don't expect any type of nuclear war. I don't think anyone needs to prepare for a nuclear war here in the United States. But I do think unless, of course, if Putin thinks he's going to lose, then it could come to that. But I think in the meantime, for now, this is going to play out over there in Ukraine and Russia back and forth. And then if we send in these 800,000 NATO troops to Ukraine, then things are going to get really ugly really fast. But that takes a while to do. I don't know if they can do that before Trump takes office. But we all know what the plan is. I keep watching. Sorry if I seem distracted every couple seconds. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. So far, Russia has not released any statement that I've seen about their launch of this ICBM missile. The White House, from what I have seen, has not made any type of statement. If they have, it's been since I've been on the show and I've missed it. But I'm trying to keep an eye on that because there will be a lot of statements going around today. Some you will hear in the media, some you won't. And I will make sure whatever I hear, I'll be updating on tomorrow's show. But man, keep your head on a swivel in so many different ways, not only in your own neighborhoods, but we've got a lot going on. Paul says the military industrial complex is licking their chops, even at the expense of human life. Yeah, they don't care about human life. Those people do not care about human life at all. They don't care about Ukrainian lives. They don't care about us. We're all just pawns. And I feel terrible for the people of Ukraine and what they have to live with and what they have to deal with. I can't even imagine. I just played the sound for you in the video of the missile when it landed over there in the Dnipro region. I can't even imagine if that happened here and you're laying in your bed at night just waiting for the bomb to drop. And these missiles take a while. So this morning I wake up really early, to get prepared for the show. And I saw the notification that said, "Oh, the launch has happened." And then guess what? It takes time. I don't know, it took 5-10 minutes. These missiles can travel up to 5,500 kilometers. And then everybody was just waiting. They knew the missile had been launched. And then it was just a waiting game. Where will it land? I can't even imagine being at home and sleeping or in bed or whatever you might be doing. And all of a sudden, you hear the warning that the missile has launched. Where is it going to land? By me, on my house? What's happening? I can't even imagine. It's so awful for the children over there. But you know what? This is the fault of the United States government. It is the fault of NATO countries. It is the fault of Zelensky. And it's unfortunate that we poked Putin into having to do this. Putin has made it very clear many times over that his problem with the United States is not the American people. He has a really good grip on understanding that it is not the people of the United States. It is not the Americans. It is the government. And that is why I really don't think that he would ever launch any type of missile that would harm the American people unless he just got to the breaking point where he had no choice. I think he's going to be very strategic in what he does, but so much going on, and I wanted to make sure if there was anything I'm not covering. I believe it was an RS-26. We talked about that yesterday, what type of ICBM it was. And again, thank God, non-nuclear. Will they launch another one today? Will there be a second, warning? I think one warning is enough because that goes to show that Putin is willing to do something that no one else has ever done. No country has ever launched an ICBM missile, at another country in a time of war. It's never happened. Very historical moment for everyone. Not in a good way, of course. We'll see what happens. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was Orban from Hungary, because he made a pretty telling statement. And I always wonder, every great nation falls, doesn't it? If you look back at the history books, we had the Ottoman Empire. We could go all through all these different empires that were once at the top of the hierarchy, and then they fell. And a lot of people are predicting that we have fallen, that we have been used to being at the top of the empire for so long. And of course, Democrats have just destroyed that for us. And Lane, it's funny, 20 years ago, you couldn't get the Euros to fight for anything. All they want to do is fight now because we know, what did Boeing just laid off? I don't know. Somebody said they were going to lay off like 17,000 people. I know they laid off a couple of thousand the other day. Why? Because of Trump presidency, it's going to be peaceful. During Trump's 4-year term, at no point did we enter into a new war. We were already involved in the situation that was going on in Syria. We were already involved in the situation going on in Yemen. We did not start any new wars under his term. In fact, he ended a lot of wars. And if it weren't for Trump, the situation in Syria would have been so much worse because we know under Obama lied to us. Let's just put it very plainly. He lied to us. He lied to Americans. He told us that we were in Syria fighting to protect the people of Syria from ISIS. First of all, we were in Syria illegally. When it comes to war, you cannot enter another country even to fight for them on their behalf unless you're invited. You have to be invited. You can't just decide, "Hey, I'm going to come over to your country and protect you." You can't do that. And so we were never invited into Syria. Obama just forced us in. And of course, it was all about the oil fields. But as we always know, war is always about profit, isn't it? Because if it wasn't profitable, we wouldn't be in so many wars. But Obama lied because he told us we were there to protect the people from ISIS. And that's not true. What was really going on, and trust me, you can look up Project Timber Sycamore. You don't have to take my word for it. Look it up. And I've talked about it plenty in the years that I've been on radio, now podcasting. And what Obama did, it was the most costly project ever endured by the CIA. I believe it was it $500 billion, $500 million? I can't recall right now. And what we were really doing in Syria is we were trying to oust Assad, Bashir al-Assad, the president of Syria, who the people of Syria love for the most part. The people who don't like Syria, guess what? Those are the terrorists. And so we were in Syria allegedly fighting for the people to protect these people from ISIS. And then it turns out we were actually paying the terrorists. And Obama referred to it as moderate terrorists. Remember that when he said moderate terrorists? We were paying, training, funding, arming terrorists, jihadists, the same people our American troops fought against in Iraq. We're in Syria forcing our troops to work alongside these same men. And of course, that was a terrible decision. The terrorists turned on us. They ran our special operations troops out of the country for fear of their lives. And some of them, unfortunately, did lose their lives. A terrible operation. We lied. So don't trust what the government tells you. We were in Syria to oust Assad, to stage a coup against a country's president. Had nothing to do with protecting the people. In fact, hundreds of thousands of people in Syria lost their lives because we got involved. So never trust what the government tells you. Cody, John McCain. I'm not going to repeat that. Cody, you're going to be careful over there. And let's see here. Good morning, Rob. And so it's so frustrating to me that our country lies to us. Isn't that what we want, is just truth? Just tell us the truth. Let us figure it out for ourselves, And the problem with this situation in Ukraine, if you're listening to this show, you know what's going on over there. You know what's happening. You know the sham that it is. You understand that war is about money. We only go to war with countries to pillage their oil, their gold, their money. I could go down a whole line of all these countries, Libya, Syria, Iraq. It's all lies. It's all lies. And, all of these people who are in Congress, the reason why many of them are millionaires and billionaires is because of war. Don't think it's not. It's because of war. If you're listening to the show, you already know that, or you probably wouldn't like the show. And how do we end the cycle? Don't start any new wars, right? That is why they don't like Trump. That is why they'll do anything they can to keep Trump out of office, because that's money coming out of their pocket if they're not profiting from wars. Look at what Ukraine is. We've talked about this 2 days in a row. Ukraine is nothing but a puppet regime. Ukraine is nothing but the deep state's playground, where they have all of their money laundering, their underhanded deals, their sex trafficking, their human trafficking, their drug trafficking, their bio labs. everything that they cannot do here in the light, they do it over there and don't worry about the consequences. They cannot win. They cannot allow Putin to win because if they do, all of their secrets are going to be exposed. Putin's already been filing documents. I don't know if you know that. I think I talked about that the other day. He's already filing documents with, I don't know if it's the International Court. I can't recall who he filed them with, talking and revealing the biolabs and everything that the government, the US government, is doing over in Ukraine. And so this is going to get heated even more than it already is. Cody, we're 35 trillion in debt. You better believe we are. I was just talking about that. Our debt rose by 6% in 2024. And Cody, we're actually over that now at this point today. As of today, we are over $36 trillion in debt. And what I was going to read, sorry, I get distracted because it's so frustrating to me that all of this is happening. It's like, when are we going to learn our lesson? Are we going to learn our lesson? I don't know. So Orban, who, as you know, is Hungarian's prime minister, this was his statement. And I agree with him. I think he's right. He says he's noting that it will not be easy for the West to realize that we're no longer the superpower. And this is his direct statement. For several centuries, the West has been accustomed to thinking of itself as the most beautiful, the most intelligent. And let's see here. Oh, well, sorry. What did I do here wrong? Okay, sorry. I apologize. I'm going to start over. I'm getting all these messages from people updating me on everything that's going on. So I apologize for that. I need to turn those off. So again, this is what Orban says. He says, for several centuries, the West has been accustomed to thinking of itself as the most beautiful, the most intelligent, the most developed, and the richest. To suddenly see and realize that we are no longer the most beautiful, intelligent, developed, and rich is a challenging task. And as I said earlier, it is absolutely true that every great empire has fallen. And I do feel that that is us. With the rise of BRICS, think about where BRICS stands right now. We have all these superpowers that came together to form BRICS, and they now control more of the population than NATO or these, G20, G7 countries. They control more of the GDP. We made that switch, what was it, last year, where they started controlling more of the GDP. They are now the powerhouse. Do we really want to start a war with BRICS? Because if you start a war with Russia, you are starting a war with all of BRICS. That means China, Iran, India, Africa, South Africa, BRIC, obviously Brazil. We're going to start a war with all of these different countries because when one fights, they all fight together. And I know there's, I think, 60 applications right now going into BRICS from different countries around the world. And the world has divided itself. You're either NATO or you're BRICS. And anyone who is not NATO has applied to join BRICS. And so now it's us and Europe against the rest of the world. That's a battle. I'm sorry, but we're not going to win. And I don't know what's going to happen as that unfolds. And I don't really understand what the objective is of Democrats, of the deep state. I mean, do they want to destroy us? Because I feel like they do. Their policies destroy us, and now they want to destroy us with war. And of course, we all know that what this is all really about is just staying in power. They don't have to actually carry out a full scale war. They just have to be considered in war. If we are in a war, then of course they can use those powers constitutionally to keep Donald Trump from taking office. For how long? I don't know, till they can change the law, I guess. And no, Cody, I don't know. I think I did read the rest. And Cody, we are the richest. We just need to tell the world to go F themselves, bring the money home. We are definitely not the richest, Cody. Unfortunately, we are not the richest. Go over, look at the United Arab Emirates. They are far wealthier than we are. There's a lot of countries that are wealthier than we are. We do well. We're, like I said, fairly sheltered. We feel like we're protected. But a lot of that, I think, is just a facade. I don't think we're really as protected as we feel like we are, because we are a country where we feel so sheltered, but we have a couple million people in our country, and we don't even know who they are or where they are or what they're doing or why they're here. So I think it's a false sense of security that so many of us have. And I think we're about to find out what it's like to fear like what a lot of other countries have feared in the past. And, are we ever going to see troops, other countries' troops here on the ground? I hope not. I hope it doesn't come to that. But I think that we would be naive to think that it can't happen because it certainly can. I hope that it doesn't get that far. We're going to see how things play out today. Good morning, Eddie. But yeah, we're in trouble. No question about it. We are in trouble. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more tomorrow. I don't want to harp on about it too much because there's so many other things going on. Of course, we're getting ready to head into our holiday season. And speaking of, we're going to get into that a little bit also by the end of the show. Monica, we are the richest when it comes to natural resources. We're not, Monica. We have some great natural resources here. We would have more as far as petroleum and things like that if we actually drilled, which, by the way, Trump said on day number one. Day number one, he's going to restart the Keystone Pipeline project. Thank God. But, our problem is, Monica, well, you know what, Monica, I'm going to backtrack on what I said. We have plenty of natural resources here. We don't utilize them. And hopefully under Trump, we will do that because, we have rare earth minerals allegedly here in parts of the United States, but we don't utilize that. We don't mine for it. But then that opens up a whole nother can of worms. Do we want to take private land to mine for these things? The problem is oh, Monica says, read Colonel Adams' comment. I don't see Colonel Adams' comment. I must have missed it. And I'm going to go back and look here. Sorry, guys. I have to scroll up to find it because I missed it. Oh, here we go. Excuse me. And Paul, let's see, I must backtrack. Paul says, our enemies want our country intact. They don't want to send nuclear weapons. They'll go after the water supply and electric grids to disable our ability to function, thus rendering us vulnerable. You got that right, Paul. We talked about that too yesterday. You were 100% on that. Joe Adams, Putin should go on TV and tell the American public that the White House will leave him no choice but to use nuclear weapons. Joe, you're absolutely right. And you know what? And Putin has done that. And I think, is that the comment you guys are talking about that I missed? And because if you guys go out and look, as a matter of fact, I think I don't have it queued up today, but I played a video for you guys the other day where Putin pretty much said exactly like that. He needs to say it in plainer terms. But the problem is the media in the United States wouldn't play it. You can go out and you can watch video of Putin. You can watch video of his advisors. I played a couple of those clips yesterday, but the media is not going to show you that. Putin has very plainly said that we are pushing, and poking him and baiting him. He's very plainly said it, but the media won't play it. That's the problem. The media won't play it. What I would like him to do is hold, Joe, to your credit, what I would like him to do, just like you said, and I hope he does because there's so many people in our country who don't get it. I really do hope that Putin would hold, let's say, a press conference, something that the world cannot ignore. And even though they would anyway. And he would come out and publicly say, exactly as you said, Colonel Adams, that I don't want to go to war against the United States. I don't want to go to war against NATO. But you guys keep poking and prodding me, and now you're launching long-range missiles into my country. You've left me no choice. And he has said these things, but he needs to make it very public to where the media cannot ignore him. And I don't have any way to queue up a video in the middle of a show, but I can play that again tomorrow. And Cody says he's going to use tactical nuclear weapons. Mark my words, if Ukraine keeps launching American-made rockets into Russia, he will use them, yes. And we've talked about that the past 2 or 3 days. He absolutely will use tactical nuclear weapons. It won't be wide-scale nuclear weapons, but certainly tactical nuclear weapons. And that he just gave us the warning shot, didn't he? He just gave us the warning shot, firing that ICBM into Ukraine this morning. I think it was around 5 a.m. that took place. I saw, like I said, I saw the text message come through that said, oh, there's been a launch. And I thought, oh my gosh, here we go. Then it took 5 minutes or so for it to actually land, or for word for it. But yeah, things are going to happen. It's going to heat up. It's going to escalate. And how we react to that ICBM being fired into Ukraine is going to tell everything. And I haven't seen any statements yet. I keep watching. Colonel Joe Adams, if we go to World War III, it's because of the White House. You better believe it. It is absolutely because of the White House. And Colonel Joe Adams, if you're available tomorrow, certainly feel free to join the show. I can send you a link, get your take on what's happening, because by tomorrow we're going to know something. At some point today, the White House is going to issue a statement. Russia will issue a statement. Zelensky will issue a statement. We'll see statements from all of the NATO countries. And this, since this is historic, since no country has ever launched this ICBM, and they're going to have to react. They have no choice. So how do they react? How do they escalate it? Do they de-escalate it? Do they escalate it? I think we know the answer. Can you imagine the government, our deep state, ever de-escalating anything? And the answer to that would be no. We just continue to escalate. So it's like, what are we going to do again? And Cody says the Democrats are the party of war. Yes, because you know why? They're the party of billionaires too. And those things go hand in hand. Billionaires and war go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And so therefore, that is what it's all about. We don't matter. We get up every morning and go about our business. I'll leave the show. I've got work to do. I have a doctor appointment later today. More work to do. I'll cook dinner probably at some point, and then we just go about our business, don't we? We all have our little days planned out. And it's so weird to me when you think about the big picture, the little days we have planned out and the things we go about our business doing. In the grand scheme of things, it is absolutely nothing. We're like little ants on an ant farm to the deep state. They do not care at all about any of us. There's nothing personalized whatsoever. And they certainly don't care about our lives. And they will definitely bargain with our lives. Just wait and see. Just wait and see how things fold out. So it's possible maybe Colonel Joe Adams will join us tomorrow morning if he's available. If not, we'll catch up with him next week. But we'll see how things play out today. It's going to be crazy. I will tell you that. And I'm going to switch gears because I know we have a lot of other things to talk about. And no, Cody, you cannot go with me to the doctor. And a lot of other things to talk about. Transparency is coming. It is. Transparency is coming. Will Donald Trump make it to the White House? That's the question. Will we get through this catastrophe, and will he make it to the White House? And I don't think any of you are surprised to have the thought in your mind that they're never going to allow Donald Trump to ever resume, another 4 years. If you're thinking that, you're probably right. You're probably right. I think we have to keep moving forward. We've only got a few more weeks to go. If Putin can manage to not take the bait, if he can manage to withstand all the provocation, then Donald Trump will take office and everything will change. Everything will change. He will broker a deal of peace between Russia and Ukraine. We all know that. It's coming. And NATO countries will just have to lick their wounds and go back into their caves and hide, because they will have bankrupted themselves over absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. And that's part of also the reason why Robert Peterboe, we are chattel. You better believe that. We mean nothing to no one. Cindy, I would imagine him and Trump are in talks now. They have been. Putin and Trump have talked many times, and between the election and now, maybe before that, and they certainly know there will be talks of peace, and Putin knows this. He knows that Donald Trump is going to work out peace. No question about it. Any war that we're in right now, Donald Trump is going to do his best to settle the disputes. I mean, think about that. It was historic when Trump went over to the Middle East. Remember that? Creating peace in the Middle East. He completely opened up communication with the crown prince over in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has always been very closed off, and they did not have a good relationship at all with Democrats, and definitely not with Biden. With Obama. And so therefore, when Trump took office, one of the first things he did was created a relationship with the new crown prince. Because if you know, the new crown prince of Saudi Arabia, after his father left, he made thousands of arrests for all of these different people that his father had employed, very similar to what's happening with Trump when he took over, clearing out the swamp. Well, that's exactly what the new crown prince did over in Saudi Arabia. He got rid of all of these wealthy billionaires who had made their way into the government and were taking government money and laundering money and committing crimes and all of these other different things. So they had a lot in common in draining the swamp in each other's country. And so that was a very important relationship that he made. And he made great, he made a lot of good will relationships with a lot of other countries. Remember Kim Jong-un? Trump went over to the demilitarized zone. Remember that? Also a historic moment. Remember when he stepped over the line and met with Kim Jong-un and they walked off into the distance? And of course, that's where the camera stopped because they don't want you to see anything over there. So there was a lot that he did. And we're going to have a time of peace. If we can get him into the White House, we will have a time of peace. But Democrats don't want that. They don't. And I'm not talking about Democrats in your community because they're just blindsided. They don't have a clue what's going on. Democrats in Congress and a lot of Republican Congress, they don't want peace. They're going to push, push, push. I played a video for you guys the other day of John Bolton, one of the biggest warmongers we have. Lindsey Graham, huge warmonger. These people are just horrific, absolutely horrific. But we're going to see a lot of transparency taking place if we can get Trump into office. That is the key, getting him into office. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Again, switching gears a little bit into transparency, is that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to start a podcast. Did you hear about this? This is also, there's so much history breaking today. This is also going to be a historical tribute to transparency because they're going to start a podcast and it's going to be called Dogecast. I wish I would have thought about that first. It's going to be called Dogecast. If I would have thought about that first, this show would be called Dogecast because you guys all know how I am and feel about Dogecoin. And what the goal of their podcast is going to be transparency. And I've got a little clip here you guys can take a look at all about transparency. I'm curious what you guys think about this. If you think it's a good idea, a bad idea. I want to know what our government is spending money on. And it's going to be so wild to me, because I've said for so many years, I want to log into a system or have something mailed out to me where I see where every cent goes, that I've paid into taxes. And here we are, we're going to have a podcast where they're going to talk to us about government spending. I mean, this is revolutionary.
As part of that process, I'm now all in. I'm focused on making sure that we actually accomplish the goal rather than just talking about it. So to that end, for the next little bit, I'm going to put a pause on the Weekly Truth podcasts. I've enjoyed doing it this year. It's been incredibly fun and entertaining. I've learned from a lot of the guests, and I've enjoyed communicating with all of you. We're going to put that on pause for a little bit. And as you may have heard, Elon and I are going to start a separate track of Dogecasts that explain exactly what we're doing to the public to provide transparency in what is a once-in-a-generation project. We want to bring the public along with us, to lift the curtain, to take us behind the scenes of what actually that waste, fraud, and abuse in government looks like. However bad you think it is, it's probably worse. But we don't want to do this to just expose the problem. We want to do it to solve the problem. So stay tuned. We're going to have more information about when those Dogecasts are going to begin. We are neck deep right now in transitioning to the new dawn on January 20th. But in the meantime, I thank all of you for your journey this year, for joining us. I've loved doing the truth, and we're just going to put it on pause for a little bit to hopefully embark on this new chapter of saving our republic. Stay tuned for further detail.
Don't you think that is absolutely fantastic? Allison, you said you think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. I love the idea of transparency. Democrats always say that they're the party of transparency. They're the party of lies. Truthfully, they're the party of lies. I think that this is going to be a country for all Americans, not just conservatives. I'm not a Republican, so I'm not even going to talk about the difference between Republicans and Democrats. I think many of us don't feel that there's any particular party that truly represents us. I am definitely not a Republican. I can't stand Republicans in Congress, the majority of them. Can't stand Democrats in Congress. It's not about the two political parties, which in my opinion should be completely abolished and wipe the slate clean and start all over again. But Democrats always say that they want to be transparent, but there's zero transparency. All they do is lie to us and tell us they're transparent when really it's just a pack of lies. So I really look forward to a time when we're hearing the truth. I love it. I absolutely love it. And some of the things they've already been uncovering, I want to make sure I clarify this correctly. Nancy Pelosi's niece. I mean, this shouldn't surprise anyone. She works for HUD, for the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Taxpayers, taxpayers fund the salaries for HUD. And so we, the taxpayers, pay her niece $181,648 a year. To do what? To do what? Why? I mean, is she some HUD expert? Is she qualified to have this job? And of course, her job is probably going to be one of the first to be cut when those cuts come around. I think that's absolutely insane. Monica says, I am a constitutional conservative that goes by Republican. Same for me, Monica. That's if I have to describe myself, that's how I would do it. I feel like I don't like to vote Republican, but I feel like I have no choice because it is the only option at this point. I'm certainly not going to vote for Kamala Harris, that's for sure. I feel like I have to vote Republican because we don't have a party that represents us. And of course, I know you guys know this, but the DNC and the RNC, those are not branches of government. Those are just private organizations or private organizations. They don't have to exist. We can get rid of them. It's not unconstitutional at all. We can create new parties, hopefully someone that doesn't take a profit like the RNC and the DNC. I don't like the RNC or the DNC, quite honestly. I don't like either one of them. And there's probably definitely less than 10 Republicans that I like, less than 10, because the rest of them are all warmonger rhinos. And I'm going to get into Josh Hawley, speaking of cowards, warmongers, and rhinos. Before this show is over, we're going to talk about Josh Hawley. I'm to the point now where I don't care if people get upset with me for how I feel about him or not. You know what? I'm going to talk about a little bit more about spending and tax dollars first. Then we can talk about Josh Hawley and the treason that he has committed against us, the people, is how I feel. Allison said she's a constitutionalist, and that's what we all need to be. We all need to be constitutionalists. We need to protect our Constitution at all costs. And, of course, it's so funny to me, some of these ads from Kamala Harris where she's, we're going to defend democracy, defend the Constitution. These people don't care about the Constitution, and they don't care about democracy either, which is also their fake term to use. They see the Constitution as a suggestion. That's all. And I don't even know if they even see it as a suggestion anymore. And they said, "Oh, Donald Trump, he's gonna change the Constitution. He's gonna abolish the Constitution." Are you kidding me? No. Lies and more lies. So again, we're going to be tackling government spending, and I cannot wait to see everything laid out in front of us. And look at all of the things that are going to stop. They're going to cancel these DEI programs. They're going to cancel all of these different programs that we spend money on that aren't necessary to our survival. And I cannot wait. What are we going to do with all that extra money? Maybe we'll build some new airports. Maybe we'll build some new highways. Our infrastructure in this country is horrific. Look at Ukraine. Go online and look up cafes and gas stations and different things over in Ukraine or other parts of Europe. They're years ahead of us. Their grocery stores are beautiful. Their gas stations look futuristic. And here in the United States, our infrastructure is old. It's a miracle that our railways even operate at all. They have so many problems with our railways. Our airports are old and antiquated, and we don't put any money into these different projects. Here in the area that I live, there are several areas. And when I start my separate Illinois podcast, I'll be talking about that to those that care about Illinois politics. And so here in my area, there are buildings that have been here since probably the 50s, 60s, and they're not beautiful buildings. They're buildings that are decrepit and falling apart, and they just need to tear them down and build something new, but it takes money to do that. In the meantime, I am paying, what is this here? Boeing. We're going to play this clip from Don Jr. Boeing overcharged the Air Force by 8,000% on soap dispensers. I mean, we could have an entirely beautiful new country and beautiful, beautiful infrastructure. And instead, it's just a free ride for so many of these different corporations and so many people who are taking money from the government aid going to other countries. I'm going to play this clip of Don Jr. talking about overspending and some of the changes that are going to be made, because for me, this is, in my top 5 things that we need to do is get rid of the excess spending, tell taxpayers where their money's going, and then take the extra money, because we're going to have a lot of extra money when they cut out all these programs. And then we need to make sure that that money goes to the right places, and not, another thing I'm going to talk about today, not to the Humane Society. This might surprise you when I start talking about the Humane Society here shortly. Josh Hawley first, then Humane Society.
They see what's going on. And, you know, I think they're going to be incredibly effective. That doesn't mean the swamp doesn't have teeth. But I think these are people that are actually willing to take those slings and arrows along with my father to get it done. And once they expose what's going on, you know, the transparency, once people realize how broken and corrupt it is, that's when you're going to see real change. Because the people, when they have the knowledge, are going to lose their minds at how their taxpayer dollars have been wasted.
You know, there's a small group called openthebooks.com, and they actually go and they measure everything. And for example, they find out how many people are being hired under this diversity, equity, and inclusion thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they list who they are, what their salaries are, what their offices cost. And they really have an immense amount of information on just how much built-in embedded waste there is. And then you look at some of the contracts. Boeing recently was selling literally a coffee pot for the C-17 aircraft at 8,000% more than you could buy it at Walmart.
Yeah.
Now, there's something just profoundly wrong when these kind of things
well, it's
happen.
because they do cost plus contracts. So they get a contract and it's cost plus. So there's no incentive to change anything. They just get a markup over the cost. So there's actually an incentive to have it cost more. And, you know, everyone in the military who, you know, if it's a military thing, no one in the military is going to negotiate that because they want the board seat at Boeing later on. You know, that's their off ramp. So they just allow the waste to continue. Rather than have there be an incentive to save money or find a better way, there's incentives to have it cost more and take longer. And it's just absolute lunacy. You could never run a company this way. You'd be bankrupt in 2 weeks. But because we keep racking up, you know, sort of, you know, an insurmountable amount of debt almost, you know, there's never been that incentive. And that's what needs to change.
Over $36 trillion in debt we are right now, today, up 6% in 2024. It's absolutely unbelievable. We also are a bankrupt company. I mean, country, same thing. And we're going to see some changes. And sorry, it was coffee pots, not soap dispensers. I said soap dispensers. Boeing charging 800% more on a coffee pot. I mean, we need some guidance. We need people in the right places. We need checks and balances because things like that should never happen. And just like he said to Newt Gingrich, Don Jr., of course, that a company would be bankrupt in 2 weeks if they had this kind of spending. Well, so will a country. And we have to get it under control. I could not be more thrilled that we have Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy into the Doge, into this podcast, the Dogecast, that they're going to start talking to us about the overspending and they're going to cut all of this extra spending out so we can actually put that money towards something well worth it. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Good morning, Matthew. Robert, when was the last time a bridge, airport, road was ever built on time and within budget? You know, that's a good question because there's areas that I drive through that have been under construction for years. For years. It's like, do they ever get anything done? You know, and I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. And our roadways are just, again, so antiquated. There's so much that can be done here. You know, fighting crime. Let's put some money towards fighting crime. How about that? You know, we're going to have all this excess money. Let's finally go out and fight crime. Of course, it's going to take a lot of money to deport all these folks. So that's probably not going to help. I want to talk about Josh Hawley for a couple seconds because it's going to be very important going forward. You know, as you know, there was a secret vote. The cowards voted in secret because they didn't want the public to know who they wanted to be Senate Majority Leader. Now, of course, Democrats choose who they want to be the Senate Majority Leader because they feel like they need some opposition to Trump and his policies. And therefore, of course, they all wanted it to be John Thune. Because why? Because he would fight Trump's policies every step of the way. So, of course, they wanted it to be Thune or the same for John Cronin. He also would fight Trump's policies every step of the way. And that is the roadblock, the obstacle that Democrats want in place. So they held a secret vote, and it was going to be between John Cronin, John Thune, and Rick Scott. Obviously, Rick Scott being the choice of Trump and Vance and all of these other folks on the Trump administration. Well, they're all cowards. They all held their vote in secret. Nobody fought to have a public vote. And thank God that list was released. I believe it to be accurate. I can't confirm it. I can't call these people who ask who they voted for, but I did see the list. Most of you did. And we saw who they voted for in secret. Josh Hawley in Missouri, who everyone says is, oh, he's such a wonderful guy. He's fighting for what's best for this country. Oh my gosh, I've never liked him. And I've been pretty public about not liking him. To me, he's fake. Everything he says is fake. I know I was on some different shows and I never really cared, but I know that Vic talked about this publicly. Vic Faust, my former co-host, he would try to get Josh Hawley to come on, the show, and he would try to get interviews with him and always declined. Every single time declined because he thinks that he is better than talking to the local people. He'll do an interview with Fox News or with CNN or whoever he might be interviewing with, but not local news, and certainly not podcasts or radio or anything along those lines. And therefore, I already didn't like him even before I heard that, but I like him a lot less now. And so Josh Hawley, if you believe the list that was released, he voted for John Cronin. And anyone outside of Rick Scott is going to oppose Matt Gaetz being the attorney general and a lot of these other nominations. And that's why Democrats wanted it to be Thune. Well, in the end, what happened is John Thune won. He is now the Senate Majority Leader. And Thune is going to oppose the majority of the Trump appointments and nominations. And so Trump has already very clearly said, hey, John Thune, I am going to appoint Matt Gaetz to be my attorney general, and you can't stop me. I will use everything available to me constitutionally to make sure that he gets this nomination. And what Trump has most recently said he's going to use, I want to make sure I look at this correctly, the Federal Vacancies Act is what he is going to use. So Trump sent a very pointed message to John Thune. He said, listen, you may as well go ahead and allow Matt Gaetz to be the attorney general, because if you oppose it, I'm going to use the Federal Vacancies Act to make sure that he is appointed into this position. And that will allow, if Trump uses this act to get Matt Gaetz into the position, it will allow him to be the attorney general for 210 days while Thune fights it out with the Democrats he's so close to. And so Thune is a very bad choice for Senate Majority Leader. He is, in my opinion, as bad as McConnell, maybe worse. Time will tell. I'm willing to give it a shot and see what happens. Time will tell. But we already know he opposes Matt Gaetz. So that tells us, I think, the trajectory that we're on. I want to play this video clip of Josh Hawley, mainly so I can make fun of him. But I want you guys to see this because, man, I know it sounds terrible, but I just can't stand the guy. I think he's a fake. I think he's a fraud. And I'm allowed to give my opinions without being sued for libel because they are just opinions.
Senator Josh Hawley met with Vance and Gaetz, and he joins me now. All right, Senator Hawley, so what's the word in the Senate about these confirmations?
Well, I think the word ought to be, Jesse, that every single one of these nominees needs to have a confirmation hearing as quickly as possible. My plan is to support all of them, and I would just say to my Senate colleagues, listen, let these guys testify. Give them a shot. I know some of these Senate GOP folks are saying, oh, I've got concerns. That's what a hearing is for. Don't go out and bash these people until you've at least allowed them to make their case. And listen, I mean, I think they've got momentum. I thought the meeting today with Gaetz went great, and it's full steam ahead.
So some of these guys...
He is a pretender. He's a pretender. If he really liked Matt Gaetz, if he really thought Matt Gaetz was going to be great in this position, he would have cast his vote for Rick Scott. Now, if Hawley comes forward and says, oh, I did vote for Rick Scott, I promise you, I would apologize. Not that this guy cares. He doesn't even know who I am. And he certainly doesn't care what I think. That's for sure. But what worries me is that so many people fall for his BS and his lies. And I really wish that Missourians would wake up and stop voting Hawley into office. He is one of them. He is not one of us. He is establishment all the way. He might outwardly say that he supports all of these different things, but his secret vote tells us exactly what we need to know, that he voted for Cronin, not for Scott. And we know any vote other than Scott is going to be a vote against Trump policies. I really wish everyone would reach out to Josh Hawley and say, you know what, when are you going to start working for us? the people and stop worrying about your career objectives. You know, he clearly, you know, like so many other people, you know, they get into this life of politics and then it's all about the game. They all see themselves being governor or president someday. They all are looking for these big appointments. And Trump is smart enough, I think, to see through all of the facade here. But to me, any vote against Rick Scott is a vote against Trump policies. And now we have Thune. Thank you, everyone who didn't vote for Rick Scott. Now we have to deal with John Thune, who is probably going to fight us every step of the way. So thank you, Josh Hawley, for making that happen. And you know, and Josh Hawley certainly isn't the other one, the only one. You can look at the list I posted on Facebook a couple different times, and there were certainly a lot of other ones who also did not cast the vote for Rick Scott, and they are all equally guilty of being cowards. And I'm only calling Hawley out because he is a Missouri senator, and of course, me living in Missouri for much of my life is a little bit more to the point. And Robert said, "Isn't it amazing how only the Republicans obstruct their own party? Republicans hold office, Democrats hold power." It is. You know, I've said many times over, I cannot stand the Republicans, the majority of the Republicans in Congress. The majority of the Republicans in Congress, outside of the folks in the Freedom Caucus, that's how they've separated themselves. They they may have an R next to their name, but they are part of the establishment. They are part of the group that fights against everything we want to do. You may as well consider them on the Democrat side, because they will vote against and go against all of Trump's policies. Look at I love to use Lindsey Graham as an example. I liked Lindsey Graham at one point. I really did. I really did. I would see his statements and I would agree with so many things, and all of a sudden I hit this point. And I think that was probably about the time we started funding Ukraine. And I'm like, okay, this guy wants to send us to war to fight for Ukraine because he's obviously protecting the deep state. He has to know, every member of Congress knows what's taking place in Ukraine. So any of them who fights for funding of Ukraine, who fight for us to go to war for Ukraine, they're all protecting the trafficking, the biolabs, the drugs, the organ harvesting. So if you hear anyone saying, yes, let's continue to fund Ukraine, yes, let's make sure that we go over and fight for Ukraine, those people know what they're doing, and they are funding all of these travesties that are taking place over there. And yes, we do need to support the people of Ukraine. That's a whole different story. That's you can assimilate that to what's happening in Gaza, in the Gaza area, the Palestinians. Democrats, Obama and those before him, Democrats, including Biden, they fund Hamas. They send aid over to the Gaza area, and that money goes through Hamas, and then it's distributed around to whoever Hamas sees fit, which typically is not going to be the people. And Trump ended that policy of funding Hamas. Now, Trump still funded and gave aid to the people, the Palestinian people, but he went through a different channel so that the fund and the aid went straight to the people and not to Hamas. Now, sure, some of it may have still somehow made its way to Hamas, but the vast majority went to the people. As soon as Biden stepped into office, guess what he did? He went right back to the prior channels, went right back to giving the money to Hamas. And if you think for 1 minute that Democrats in Congress support Israel, there's a reason why. Now, I don't agree with these people who are out there violently protesting, you know, pro-Palestinian protesters. I don't agree with them. However, we know that our government absolutely does fund Hamas, and they absolutely are anti-Israel. As a matter of fact, the International Court I saw this morning issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, which I thought was kind of interesting. I'm no fan of Netanyahu. I don't think he should be the president of Israel. I support the Israelis, you know, wholeheartedly, and of course their right to defend themselves. But Netanyahu, he's been in a lot of trouble, if you recall. For what, bribery? And I know there's a term I'm looking for that I can't quite put my mind to right now. But a couple of different things. Then they had Bennett, and then they ousted Bennett out, and then put Netanyahu back into place. But from what I understand, the majority of Israelis do not want Netanyahu as their president. There's been lots of protests against him in Israel. Do I think that it's okay for them to issue an arrest warrant? I don't know. we'll have to wait and see what happens. And the arrest warrant is for his alleged war crimes in the Gaza region. So we'll see how that also plays out. And Robert says, Hawley reminds me of Trey Gowdy. Talks good, great on asking questions. Nothing happens like Trey on Hillary Clinton. And Josh is an SES member. Yes, from what I understand, Josh is a member. And a lot of people have tied his affiliations to George Soros and George Soros's group. Is that true? I don't know. They tied Eric Greitens to it also, and I don't believe that to be true. So I don't know. I've always liked Trey Gowdy, and I've heard a lot of people, Robert, say the same thing that you're saying, and that is that Trey Gowdy does put on a good face. He comes on and tells us what we want to hear, which in my opinion is exactly what Josh Hawley does. He comes on, he tells us what we want to hear, but then his actions in private are something allegedly, completely different. So I will leave that as it is and let you guys make your own opinions. But if I were you, if I lived in Missouri, I'd be writing Josh Hawley some letters and telling him that, you know what, if you want to continue on working for the people, then you better start voting for policies that better us. And you better not stand up against Matt Gaetz being the attorney general or any of these other appointments. Some other things that Trump has been talking about. He's going to open the Keystone pipeline. We talked about that. He's going to go back to getting that project underway. He says on day one, that's something he's going to do. Something I thought was kind of interesting also that he wants to do is he is going to appoint someone into a crypto role. That's a good possibility that we're going to have a crypto czar on the White House team. So I don't know what you guys think about that. I don't know how much of you guys follow crypto. I'm not going to get into it a lot right now. I know it's not everyone's thing, but I'll tell you what, Bitcoin, it was up, over 90,000, 93,000, 94,000. I think that was yesterday per Bitcoin. That's insane. I remember buying Bitcoin at like 0.009 cents, something like that, or maybe it was 0.09 cents way back in the day, which I lost, by the way. It's out there somewhere. If anybody knows how to get into my wallet, I'll pay you $1 million. But I think we need a crypto czar because crypto is going to be the way of the future. It's going to be a tough ride to get there. I'm a person that's cash is king to me. And I would love to go against the debit cards and credit cards and different things that Americans use. We all know about the credit scam. We can talk about that tomorrow if you want, about the credit scam, because it is exactly that, a scam, the credit scam. You can't buy anything unless you have credit, but you have to go into debt to build credit. It's like the stupidest thing I've ever come up with, or they've ever come up with. Sorry. And we'll see. Trump and no one in his administration has talked about any of that yet. Maybe somebody needs to bring that up to them. I know they're going to lower interest rates, so that's something they're going to do. But crypto is going to hold a place in our future. Will it be our only currency? No, not probably in any of our lifetimes. But a lot of people are buying XRP. XRP's up really high. Dogecoin continues to increase. A lot of people believe the market cap on Dogecoin could be as high as $2.40. And Bitcoin, who knows? I don't know what the cap is on Bitcoin, but I know it's got a long way to go. And Donald Trump is very into cryptocurrency. We know that back in July, he spoke at the Bitcoin conference. He has had Bitcoin miners to Mar-a-Lago for different types of meetings. He's really trying to learn all about crypto and bringing it into the future. So if you've held on to your crypto like I have, don't let it go. Just let it ride out. It's easy when it gets high to sell like a lot of people do. And we're seeing that with Dogecoin. It'll go up, let's say 43 cents, and a few people sell, then it'll drop down to like 35 cents. And then it'll go up. And if you're someone like me who bought Dogecoin, gosh, I bought it when it was like 0.0000 many zeros, 6 cents, back when Elon Musk first started talking about Dogecoin. And if you're one of those people who's been writing it out for a really long time, to see Dogecoin hit 43 cents is miraculous. It is crazy. It's like, how did this happen? We all hope to see that day. And now we are. XRP, like I said, that's up. A lot of people think XRP is going to be the future of crypto. I don't know. Somebody sent me a message yesterday, and they said, what is the future of crypto? What is going to be the main cryptocurrency that we use going forward? And again, a lot of people think it's going to be XRP. I don't think it's going to be Bitcoin. I don't think it's reasonable to believe it will ever be Bitcoin. I think that to think about going to the grocery store and purchasing a loaf of bread with Bitcoin. I mean, you're going to use what, 0.00012368910 would be the currency that it would be exchanged. I think it would just be too hard. XRP is more in line with like a 1-for-1, kind of exchange. So we'll see. We'll see how things play out. But I do hope that they do have a cryptocurrency position lined out in the Trump administration. I see it happening. This big alliance. What are they calling Elon Musk now? First buddy. He's been referred to as first buddy. And it's kind of funny when they first started coming out with this term as first buddy, he responded back and he says, hey, I'm happy to be first buddy. Good for him. And did you also see, man, I meant to play that for you today. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow, that there is now a cyber truck as part of Trump's entourage. When you see the vehicles, traveling, you'll see black SUV, black SUV, black SUV, cyber truck, and then more black SUVs. I think that is so wild. I love all of the things I'm seeing. I do. I absolutely love it. Even if you're like me, even if some of these people that Trump has appointed, you're just not so sure about, you have to trust the process. Trust me, there is a plan in place. It is a plan to help us all. Like Trump said, it's going to be the golden age, and it certainly is. So we just have to trust the plan. Even we don't understand it, even when we're not so sure about some things, you just have to trust the plan. Now, of course, we've talked a lot about Russia today. I'm not going to go back to that right now because we'll be talking about it tomorrow. And Robert says cryptocurrency. So what is crypto? Dead money? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Robert. And Robert says XRP Advantage. It's already ISO compliant. Yes. Yeah, there for a while there, the XRP, which is Ripple, they had the SEC was investigating them to see what all was going on. For a long time, if you had XRP, you couldn't touch it. You couldn't do anything with it. It just sat in your account. And a lot of us who have XRP knew the minute the SEC is done with that investigation, we knew they didn't do anything wrong. All of a sudden, we know our XRP is going to grow, and it definitely did. XRP, I think, is a fantastic crypto, but I am not a financial advisor. I can't tell you guys what to do, what not to do. But if you ever do want to buy crypto, you can go and open a wallet. I use Atomic Wallet. You can go on these different exchange sites. Just make sure if you do have crypto that you do hold it in your wallet, not on the exchange. I made that mistake and I lost a lot of money with one of my crypto accounts. So don't do that. Don't keep it on the exchange. And I buy a little bit of everything. You can buy, once you have your wallet established or an exchange, you can go in, let's say every paycheck, you can take $10 out, $20 out, and just buy a little bit of everything, because you never know in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, where that's going to be. It could just blow up in a big pile of dust. We don't know. But, for a lot of us who've held, it is really phenomenal to see what crypto is now doing. And the next 4 years under Donald Trump, I can promise you, he's going to continue the ride with the crypto. He has already made that very, very clear. What will happen after that's a whole nother story. But, and of course, getting Trump to the finish line, to the certification, to the inauguration is an entirely different story. And I know there were some other things I wanted to talk about today. And what did I say? Oh, the Humane Society. That's what I wanted to talk about, the Humane Society. I don't want to forget about that because this is so important. And I also want to talk about AI Jesus. So if you're thinking about heading out anywhere, you might want to stick around for AI Jesus. But first, I want to talk about the Humane Society. Then I'll talk about AI Jesus before we close out the show. And I'm going to do it quickly because we only got a few more minutes. We've all seen those commercials with the Humane Society, and they're just heartbreaking. I know we all love animals. We all love animals. And the last thing we want to see is defenseless animals not being taken care of, especially on a cold day like today. You guys may have read that story about, I saw a dog on the highway. I turned around. By the time I got back to the dog, it was gone. And I've been thinking about it ever since. I did locate the owner of that dog, but they also haven't been able to find it. So I worry in this cold weather about that poor dog being out looking for shelter. And there's so many other dogs, cats, and other animals out there that we want to do everything we can to make sure these defenseless animals are safe. But how do you do that? You can't take in every dog and cat that you see. That's just not feasible. And And so we do often donate our time, donate our money to different organizations that help animals, right? That's a number one to so many of us. Do not give your money to the Humane Society. And I hate to say that, but do not, just don't do it. Give to the Humane Society of the United States. You know why? And I'm not saying don't give money to animals. Give it to your local pet shelters. Give it to your local pet shelters. The reason why I'm going to show you a video of this, but I'm going to talk about it first. $350 million in assets to the Humane Society. The Humane Society operates 0 shelters. None. 0 shelters. And they have $350 million in assets. They pay their CEO $600,000 a year. You know how many animals $600,000 a year could take care of? And what does the CEO do, considering they don't have a single pet shelter? What is he doing for that $600,000 a year other than managing? Is he really just a fund manager for that $350 million? Who is benefiting from all of this? And I'm going to show you a little video clip here that will explain exactly what I'm talking about. And when I saw this, I had to look into it because I thought, how can this be true? And then I found out it is true. It is true. So take a look at this.
Hello, everyone. I'm an executive with the Humane Society of the United States.
So you run pet shelters?
Actually, no. We don't run any pet shelters.
You're called the Humane Society, but don't run pet shelters? Do you at least fund them?
We give 1% to run pet shelters.
Only 1%? Don't you run all those commercials on TV with sad dogs and cats?
Yes, we spend a lot of money on TV ads. We have raised so much money in donations that we are now sitting on over $300 million in investments.
How much money does your CEO make?
Well, our CEO makes over $600,000 a year. But there are lots of people there who only make $100,000.
Why would anyone want to donate to these guys instead of local shelters?
If you want to help shelter pets, donate to your local shelter, not the Humane Society of the United States. Learn more at Environment and Welfare.
I will be curious what you guys think about that, because I feel so terrible coming on here and say don't give money to the Humane Society, because I've always believed you absolutely should support the Humane Society. But if all of these things are true, they don't have one single pet shelter. Their CEO is making $600,000 a year, and they have $350 million in assets. No, give and help your local pet shelter. And Robert says, I agree. I feel the same about the Red Cross, United Way, most charities. Yes, me also. And it's all business where minimal goes to the cause. Give your money, give your aid to the organizations who give it directly to the people or directly to the animals. And there are so many local no-kill shelters that are housing these animals, and they barely scrape by, just barely scrape by. I'm going to try to reach out. If you guys know of anyone, you can send it to me. I'm going to try to reach out to a local shelter, in my area or another general area, just to find out what things are really like if you are in charge of a local shelter. How much money is coming in? How much aid comes in? And how do they feel about the Humane Society getting the big bulk of money that should go to pets, but yet is paying $600,000 to CEO? Could you imagine if $600,000 came into your local pet shelters? That would be absolutely insane. So I'm going to always give locally. That's right. Always give locally. Peggy says, what about the local Humane Society? Peggy, that is my question also. How does the Humane Society of the United States relate to your local Humane Society? I don't think the Humane Society, your local Humane Society, is considered a pet shelter. I think that it's a transition place where they try to find homes for animals. If they pick up your animal, you can come and pick them up. But the Humane Society, they kill a lot of animals, I have, years ago, I had a friend who lost her dog, and we ended up going to the Humane Society, and we saw the dogs that they were euthanizing in trash bags, throwing them into the dumpster. And it was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen. There was probably 50 or 60 bags of animals that they had euthanized and were throwing into a dumpster. And now where the dumpster went, I don't know. I'm not saying it went to the trash. It might have went to, somewhere to incinerate. I have no idea. But either way, it was really crazy. And to see that was absolutely heartbreaking. And Robert says, even a lot of the churches are a financial scam. That is true. There's a lot of people who are against organized religion for exactly that. I've only got a couple minutes. I want to show you the AI Jesus. And a lot of people are saying this is a complete abomination. And what's happening is there is a church in Switzerland. And at this church, there's a hologram Jesus behind the screen. And when you go in and you make your confession, you're confessing to the hologram Jesus. And it's the strangest thing to me. And I've got a video showing the AI Jesus as he's being referred to. And it's pretty darn wild. And I personally do not think this is a good idea at all.
Lieber Freund, ich danke dir für die Zeit des Austauschs und der Reflexion. Möge deine
You can see him behind the
Reise
screen.
mit wundervollen Augenblicken erfüllen und dein Herz mit Dankbarkeit erblühen lassen.
I'm not going to play that again, but you guys can go online and look at that. But that is AI Jesus behind the screen. You're going into these churches in Switzerland and you're confessing. And do you want to confess to a hologram Jesus? Does that make you feel better about your sin? I don't know what to think about this. Is it blasphemous? Is it something that should be banned? Is it I don't know. Is this acceptable to you? Monica says that is creepy and completely satanic. Yes, it is. And Linda, Finding Forever in Marion, Illinois works hard, meets the needs, and pays the bills. They have a high tax bills that they have been trying to get reduced. I will check them out, Linda. Yeah, AI Jesus. I'm not sure where that's going to go. I hope we don't see a lot more of that, but that's been pretty popular for whatever reason online. I don't know what would make any church create a hologram of Jesus for you to confess to. To me, that just seems strange. It would be different if it was like for entertainment value, but to think that people are coming into church and confessing to AI hologram Jesus is so strange to me. And it was just a strange sight altogether. There's a lot of videos out there of it if you want to look into that a little bit further. I just want to give a quick update before we head out for the day. You also, Monica, have a good day. I've been waiting. Every time I play a video for you guys, that's my opportunity to look to see if I see any new statements from anyone. And I'm seeing this from Dmitry Medvedev. He is, of course, the chairman of the Security Council in Russia. He gave a video presentation. I don't have any way to load that up in the middle of the show. But the only thing he said Russia today is in a difficult situation, and the responsibility of each member of United Russia increases immeasurably. Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot that's going to play out today, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m.-ish, and I'm sure by tomorrow morning we're going to have some updates. I'm not sure if Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard is going to join us or not. I will reach out to him at some point today. He's got a lot going on. In the meantime, I'm going to talk tomorrow about what we can do here in the United States to prepare ourselves for what could potentially be a war and how that will affect us here in your own home, things that you can do. We're not going to prepare for a nuclear war. You cannot prepare for a nuclear war. Just as Colonel Joe Adams said yesterday, you might as well forget it. But there are things you can plan for: EMP attacks. You can plan for power outages, for internet outages. There's a lot of different things you can prepare for. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. We're going to give some updated information. There's going to be a lot that plays out today. I would watch the news as, real news if you can, as closely as possible. Find out what's going on in Russia. Find out what's going on here in the U.S. And, of course, always watch NATO because those folks, they're going to try to drag us into any kind of war they possibly can to keep Trump out of office. So that's all I have today. I'm running out of time. I do thank you all for joining me today. As always, I appreciate your support more than you know. If you like the show, share the show. That's the only way we grow and expand and get truth out to more people. It is so windy out there. I'm just waiting for my power to go out. It's just a huge wind gust. Be careful out there today, especially if you're out driving. This wind is probably very difficult to drive in, especially for big trucks. Be careful. Look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow. I hope you all have a fantastic day.